Hi, everybody. I'm sure other people will wander in because it's, daylight saving time. They think it's 4 o'clock still, so, okay. I'm Donna Larson. I do media for the Hartford Public Library, and media, the key word here, because I know all these savvy journalists, editors, TV personalities, bloggers, so many titles, and worked with a lot of these people for a lot of years. And Sasha is new to me, so welcome, Sasha.
Thank you.
I see a lot of great familiar faces out there and some people I don't know, so please come up and say hi after. Susan Campbell is going to be the referee.
Dang.
And I know she can do it. I used to sit next to her, so enough said there. And we are really interested. It's Women's History Month. Everybody know that? We're almost at the end. Okay. A little commercial here. National Library Week is April 11th through the 15th. And it's a nice perfect storm here because Matilda the Musical, thank you, Paul Marty from the Bushnell, is coming to the Bushnell at the end of the month. And we love this story. I don't know how many are familiar with Roald Dahl's book, but it's about a librarian and a teacher who help a young child with the power of imagination, reading books, overcoming some incredible odds, and it's a hell of a musical. So Paul threw in a couple of tickets to sweeten the pot, and our new CEO is starting that week, so we have a lot going on that week. So I invite you to come Thursday, April 14th, and there's a couple of newcomers. One of them is Frank Rizzo. You know Frank Rizzo? He covered theater for, decades and decades, sitting next to me as well. And Kate Rushin. Do you know the poet Kate Rushin? Journalist, also an author, and on the nose with Colin McEnroe, really wonderful person. They're going to talk about the power of Matilda and how libraries save their lives and the magic of story and all the stuff we love to hear. So there's all kinds of data back there, all kinds of stuff. Tomorrow night we have Stacy Schiff's The Witches. It's a book discussion on that. Friday night, we have an opening of our artwork, Sarah Paolucci, and she does incredible stuff with hands. The show is up. If you want to wander up there afterwards and take a look at her artwork, it is open. And Saturday, we're going to announce the Hartford Decides winners. So if you've all been following that, how we're going to spend $1.25 million on different projects. Jack McConnell, photographer extraordinaire, is tied in with our Grapes of Wrath, Big Read theme. He's shot family farmers. There's all kinds of great stuff outside the artwork, so take a look at that. And all kinds of movies and baking classes and everything around the themes of the Big Read. So lots going on here. So I'm going to let these ladies introduce themselves. You're probably familiar with most of them. And we'll talk for about an hour, and then if you have questions, I'll run around with a microphone and we can keep the discussion going. So thank you all for coming.
All right. Sure. Most of us don't know how to respond when called ladies. It makes me so uncomfortable. I'm the moderator and the fight stopper. Not that there'll be any. Many of us over the years have worked in competition with each other, and then you go to the bar, and you're fine. But my name is Susan Campbell. I worked at the Hartford Courant longer than I should have. I now freelance there and at WNPR and at a website about health called CHIT, Connecticut Health Investigative Team, and I'll throw it to Marie.
Okay. Well, that good segue is that I also worked at the Hartford Courant for many years with Susan Campbell, and I'm actually on the board of the Connecticut Health Investigative Team. Now I am a journalism professor at the University of Connecticut, and my specialty is digital media. So we can talk a little bit about that, too.
My name is Renee Dinino. I've read the Hartford Courant, and I am the Director of Community Affairs and On-Air Programming for iHeart Radio, as well as the midday host on the River 105.9, and a fill-in sometimes on Channel 3, and a correspondent for Better Connecticut, and I've been doing this for, I've moved into a new era of saying 25 plus years, so that's how long I've been doing this.
Hi, my name is Sasha Allen. I'm a second-generation owner of Northend Aegis newspaper. I've actually been birthed into this whole media industry, and we are celebrating 42 years this week.
Wow, that's great.
I'm Diane Smith, and I have plagiarized the Hartford Current, which has led me to a long and happy career in television, radio, and otherwise. And I run Diane Smith Media.
I am Diane Alverio, and I have to tell you, I also have a Hartford Current connection. I spent about a year or two there. Who doesn't when you love journalism and you love media and all of that? I've worked in print, TV, and radio. And here and on PBS nationally, it just goes on and on and on. I look back and I think, no wonder I retired. I'm tired. I am a little tired. But I was a journalist for about 25 years, and then because I had young children, it just didn't work for me anymore, so I left. And I did public relations and marketing for many years. And last year I said, I don't want to do that anymore. But prior to that, 2 or 3 years before that, I wanted to do, journalism. My roots just called me back, and I started CT Latino News, which is an English online news site covering Connecticut. And that was 2012. And interesting, I didn't want to do the other work anymore, but there's no way I'm stopping CT Latino News. I'm having fun with it. And it's digital, and I'm online. And I just returned for 4 months down south, many points down south, and I was able to continue to do it. And I love to tell people how important this whole digital era is, because I could not have done that. CT Latino News would never have existed because I wouldn't have had the funds to start a media outlet, and it's very necessary. I'll tell you more later.
Very good. All right. Well, I think what we want to talk a little bit about first is how the media landscape has changed. Is there anyone here going into the media, planning? Okay, good for you. But I want to get someone's perspective who has been in the media from birth, right? You said that Sasha was telling a story right before we started about requirements to remain in the family, included.
I had several siblings, and my mom had a very strict rule. We were required to touch the business at least twice a week. She didn't care how we did it, we had to do it. So that meant you had the option of going on the delivery, sitting in the office, attending meetings. I joked that my father acted like a loan shark when you did not pay your advertisement bill, and he would drag us to go collect his money. That unique perspective and that upbringing kind of didn't make me second guess my abilities as a woman to get certain things accomplished. And when I wanted to push the envelope in what we did and the perspectives and how we operated and moved forward, I just did it. And actually last week I was having a conversation with a cousin. He said, you do realize you're a 5'7" female? And I said, yeah, so? And he said, well, you can't be running around here like you're a 6'4" guy and just doing what you want. And I kind of looked at him and I was like, I never really thought about that, but I'm going to keep doing what I want. I love what I do, and I operate from that perspective. When we started, when I was born, we were printing once a week, and the media industry was shifting. And I can remember my mother and father sitting down and trying to decide how can we preserve our business and move forward. And the unique thing about them is they included all 3 of us. My sisters were in elementary school. And as a family, we decided we would publish on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of the month, and we would not publish every week. That cut a printing bill in half. That was able to help us sustain our business and even increase our employees. As an entire unit, we made that decision and we moved forward. And now as we prepare to make some new changes, we're sitting down as a family and we're making those decisions. So that's my unique perspective.
That is very unique. We'll come back to the changes. Diane, Smith.
There's 2 of us.
I know. We put the Dianes down there. And they never let Diane Smith and I sit together, and that's okay. Diane, do you remember journalism when you first started?
I do, and it's been coming back to me more and more in one particular aspect, and that is every time I hear people discussing whether Hillary Clinton sounds shrill and whether her voice is appropriate and whether she's shouting and whether she's all talking about her voice, it reminds me of when I started in TV news, because the theory at the time was that people would not listen to women newscasters. Their voices would be too high-pitched, they'd be annoying, and most of all, they would not sound authoritative. So fast forward 10 years later, and at that point I'm at my 2nd television job, which was at Channel 8, and a consultant comes into the newsroom and says, Diane sounds too authoritative. We need to soften her up a bit. So for about a month I wore pastel colors, and that was supposed to soften me up. So, yeah, that's sort of how it was when I started.
Renee, are you nodding your head?
I'm nodding my head and agreeing with everything you just said, because when I first started, I mean, this is the only career I've ever had. In 8th grade, you know, my mom knew that I was going to be a DJ. I used to sleep with my clock radio underneath the covers, and I would listen to everybody talk, and I just wanted to be that person on the other end playing that cool song. And I don't know, it was just something that I've always wanted to do. So when I first had the opportunity when I was in high school and when I was 16, my mom used to drive me at night, which I don't know, we might want to check your parenting about that. But she would drop me off at a rock station, WHCN at the time. This was in 85, 86, something like that. Anyway, so she would leave me there with the night jock. It was good job. No, but it worked. It worked. But anyway, so then when I got my first job, and Diane, to your point, I remember I was so excited that my voice was so high, and I was so excited, and I would be introducing Eric Clapton, which is his 71st birthday today, but I would be introducing Eric Clapton or the Allman Brothers or Leonard Skinner in this very, oh my God, I can't believe I'm playing, you know. And my boss at the time told me that I needed to be sexy. And I've never, to this day, I'll never be called the sexy one. But I remember that I had to have that certain radio voice, and so they said, why don't you light a candle and pretend, you're romancing someone and just sit in a room with the dark. And so then I didn't know if he was serious, and this is an honest-to-God true story. This happened at CCC when I worked there. I brought a candle in, and I turned the lights off, and I got in trouble because not only did the candle, this is a true story, the candle dripped wax on the floor, and I got it on the floor, but I couldn't see what I was doing, and we were playing records at the time, and I knocked the records off the air. I couldn't find anything. I was holding the candle, and I was trying to be sexy. It was way before YouTube, so yes, I was nodding in agreement that things have changed, and I remember I've never sounded authoritative. I didn't even sound sexy, but I still managed to find my way. Sorry.
Oh my God. Marie, do you remember when they had us light candles at the Current?
Be more sexy.
We were sacrificing baby lambs. When did you come to the Current? That wasn't your first newspaper
That
job?
was my first newspaper job.
You were
yes.
a virgin.
I was, yes.
When was it?
I graduated from UConn. Donna Larson, the wonderful Donna Larson, was one of my instructors at UConn. And I started working at the Current as an intern my senior year, and then after I graduated, I got a job.
What did they have you doing?
I was on the
intern?
city desk.
Okay.
As an intern, I got to cover all these incredible stories. I covered this. I had a front page story about abortion protesters down in Bridgeport. I had another story about this controversy at UConn with these anthropology professors and sort of discrimination against this woman who was hired, and then she was sort of taken out. But then when I got hired by the Current full time, I had the Hartford neighborhoods job,
Okay.
which the Current doesn't have anymore, but it was a wonderful experience for a first-time reporter because I'm from Connecticut, but I grew up in the suburbs, and my job was to go out into Hartford's 17 neighborhoods and talk to everybody the Current never talked to. Talk to people, community organizers, youth groups, churches, everybody the Current just sort of ignored. That was my job. I had to write 2 stories a day, and one of them had to have a photo. Whoa. That I didn't take.
Oh, thank God. Wow.
So when I hear some of my students complain about how digital media got to churn it out, journalists have always churned it out.
That's true. Diane Alverio, what brought you into journalism? Did you have a role model or know a better job prospect?
No, I wasn't. Oh, you're close. No, it's one of those, you're in college and you're like, okay, what do I do now? Okay, should I be a teacher? No, okay, that's not going to work. I don't like to get up early. It just went on, and I was very active. I grew up in New Britain, large Puerto Rican community there, and I was very active with the community, and I was asked to sit on a minority advisory board for Channel 30. This is when the FCC had rules and, followed these things. Yeah, a long time ago, that they were trying to keep the broadcast outlets as honest as possible in terms of serving everyone. And I started learning more about communication, and I thought to myself, and I had always been somewhat of a social activist and always very active in different causes, and I just thought, whoa, this is good. This is a wonderful vehicle to tell lots of stories. Many, many different stories. So, and then when I started learning more about the power of journalism and writing and communication, I just thought, yep, there's not a lot of us people that look like me. as part of this, so I just went for it and loved it. Then my grades shot up because I knew what I wanted to do. I did a lot of internships, and I have to do just a story, not that it can ever match Renee's candle story, but I'll tell you, I was thinking about this on the way here, because it's women in media, and I thought, if I'm asked about that, what's my take on it? I'm Hispanic and I'm a woman. I'm a Latina in media, and it's really a different role. It was for me especially. I mean, I started in the 70s, so
Me too.
I was always the only, in many cases, the only Hispanic in the newsroom. And I mean, I had to straighten people out of, you need a translator, you need to hire one. I went to school, I have my degrees, I am here to do news, not translate, because you can't do that. But one of my favorite stories when I was at Channel 3, and I'd done quite a few things, but when I came back from the West Coast, I produced a national PBS show. I was one of the producers, which allowed me to travel around the country and learn a lot about this country, and that was very helpful. But when I came back, I worked at TIC for a while, the Current for a while, then the Channel 3 picked me up. They realized, God, she's okay. She knows how to write. She knows how to speak. She's Puerto Rican, but she knows how to do all of this stuff. So Channel 3 was a good experience for me. And they used to do promos for your series during ratings month. And I was doing it was teen suicide or something really intense, very good. And they didn't use my name in the promo. And I asked the promo guy. And now Jim Vicevich was there with me at the time. And he said, well, it's hard to say Alverio. And I said, you say Vicevich. So, and these are the realities, I mean, in terms of not just being a woman, but having this other piece of who I was in a newsroom has always been an interesting experience for me. And sometimes I had to be a little bit more of an advocate than I needed to be, But I'll tell you, let me just say this real quick story. We had who remembers the Wells Fargo robbery in West Hartford years ago? Huge story. And a couple of years later, still I'm the only Hispanic in the newsroom, and they captured one of the guys, Filiberto in Puerto Rico, the FBI agents, all that. So there was a Spanish news feed into Channel 3. And I wasn't around. And I won't do translating, but that was my story. Wells Fargo was my story. I covered that story. I covered the trials when we used to do things like that. And I came back. I was on another story. Do you know who they had translating? The janitor, the only other Hispanic in the building. And I said, what are you doing? He said, hey, I can't say no. So it just told me a whole lot about the whole, that's why I wanted to add that piece, that's a very real piece for, I'm sure, other minorities as well, Asians and others in newsrooms, that there's that other piece to it.
Were those the guys that were later known as Los Macheteros?
Yeah, they were
okay,
Los Macheteros.
I just came back from Cuba, and we were touring areas where they were cutting sugarcane, and they kept saying Los Macheteros, and I was like, no, that's not Los Macheteros.
Well, no, that's where they came from. Yeah,
I realized that.
That means
I realized that. There was a little bit of a,
And you didn't see Victor Herrera,
I
did
did
you?
not.
Okay, darn.
I was looking.
Anyway.
I was looking.
This is sort of a segue, but sort of not. It's interesting because as newsrooms have cut their staff and strafed their staff, what's happening is there are several studies that say that newsrooms are becoming even more Caucasian, increasingly white, which leads me, we can talk about racial ethnicity, but also gender. Do you think women cover the news differently than men? I have this argument a lot.
I think it's a frame of reference. Where I would fall on that is, if I had an interest in airplanes and aviation, I would tend to do more of those stories. I had an interest in who I was and my heritage, so I wanted to do more of those stories. I don't know that a man would have done it differently than I. I think it's your frame of reference, what your particular interests are in terms of writing. That would be my take on it.
I think for a lot of years in the early years of my career, maybe even the first decade, I was trying to be a man.
Me too.
Yeah.
Because you
Shoulder
really
pads.
weren't taken seriously. Yeah, absolutely,
Oh, no
shoulder
kidding.
pads and all that. But I was also trying to imitate how they did everything, and it wasn't until probably after I was already in the business for a decade or more that I realized it's okay to be who I am, even if I am too authoritative.
And that was an inspiration for me, as you know, when I had a chance to work with you. But, to to what you're saying, and to go back a little bit as well, coming along in this industry as a female and telling your story, whether it be, you know, in writing or on air, it's very different. And I think there is a sensitivity that women just have inbred in them. But I remember what you were saying, Diane, is that I would try to force an appearance that wasn't necessarily there. And then I had this image of myself that was definitely not right. And I wanted people to take me seriously, and I wanted to be so looked at. And I am an only child, so I did have the me thing going on. But I remember when I got my first job, I thought, okay, I'm going to change the world, and I'm going to take over everything. And the first thing they asked me to do was a bit called Ask the Bimbo. And I was just so mortified, and I did it. And the best advice I give people now, and I was still a teenager, even though I was working in our industry, but I look back in that, and you know when you think back to a story and you just shudder, and you just, oh, why did I do that? I just, whenever I see young women, regardless of color, background, anything, whenever I see young women doing things like that, I think you don't have to do that. And I can tell you for sure you don't have to do that, because I was Ask the Bimbo. So you don't need to do silly gimmicky things to get attention and to get noticed. And that, thankfully, in this day and age, we have great role models that are all up on the stage. I really don't feel like I should belong on this panel, but you could still be yourself and get your point across and tell your story without having to play that card or fall into any traps like that. So.
And Susan, I do think it's important. You need to have diversity in the newsroom. And I can even think of an example just from my class last semester. So every semester I teach a digital journalism class, and at the end of the semester my students have to do a large explanatory project. So one of my students had a great idea about this sort of Facebook group that everyone at UConn looks at and uses, and there's a very sort of inappropriate conversation that happens there. So she was examining how this particular Facebook conversation had taken on these issues that were happening at UConn, and everyone she interviewed was male. And so when I read her story, I said, do girls read this website? And she said yes. I said, do girls participate on this Facebook group? She said yes. I said, how come you didn't talk to any of them? So, and maybe it's because I'm a woman that I noticed, like, there's no female voices in this story at all. And clearly, girls are posting on this group, girls are being talked about on this group. So I made her, I said, you need to go talk to a bunch of girls and find out, you know, how do they feel about this?
Did she have an explanation as to why she hadn't talked to girls?
And, you know, sometimes it might just be she just needed to interview as many people as she needed to get the assignment done, and the men were just the ones who happened to be available, and they're the ones who used the group the most, so that's probably what was on her mind. But I hope by, you know, being a good editor and teacher for that story, the next time she does a story she thinks are all the voices that need to be represented in this story.
Susan, can I just say something along those lines? There's so many trends, and media's just changed so dramatically, but what has disturbed me, I have to tell you, it's not switching digital newsrooms. It's, as Diane pointed out, what you were told when you started, what we were all told. And then when did it start? 10, 12 years ago, where the sexiness crept in, and I started watching the weather people and the news reporters, and those sweaters were getting tighter. And I just thought on television, and I mean, it just has really, it's been so disheartening. And to me, that is one of the most dangerous trends. If you look, I remember everyone wearing suits, and then everyone went casual. And then when did this start? 4 or 5 years ago, the sleeveless dresses. And the consultants come in because they want women to look more feminine. And so to me, that has really undermined equality in newsrooms. It really has.
And what
Although
is
I
feminine?
will say that,
What is looking more feminine too?
I mean, that trend disturbs me as well. But when I think honestly about it, I think that my appearance was always much more scrutinized than the men. And all those consultants they would bring in would talk to me more about how did my hair look, what color was it, what clothing was I wearing. My very first TV job, I had the general manager who was about 5'4" and I'm 5'8", and he's bald. And he was almost as wide as he was tall. And he called me into his office, and this is my first job, right? He calls me into his office to tell me that I need to file my teeth down because when I smile, I show too much teeth. And I thought,
Is that a
really,
thing?
you little troll? You're telling me?
Yeah.
to file my teeth there. And over the years, it went on and on. Now, so it wasn't necessarily you had to be sexy, but you had to look pretty. And, I don't remember anybody ever saying, when I was co-hosting with Al Terzi, co-anchoring, they never told Al, you need to look better, Al. You need to do this, you need to do that. They didn't tell him how to color,
But the guys haven't had to get sexier.
No.
Unless you're watching the entertainment news reports and that sort of thing, where they're all buff. But other than that, I think in news particularly, this is where I see the difference. There's still the suits, but the women have to look more feminine. And that, to me, is an incredibly disturbing trend that, again, undermines.
And I remember Channel 8, when I was about to leave Channel 8, and this trend was kind of first starting, and one of the reporters who was on the air there, whose name I will not mention, took a vacation and came back about 2 or 3 weeks later, and she'd had a nose job. And then she was made a news anchor. She'd been a reporter, but they made her a news anchor after she had the nose job. And it turned out that the station had wanted to get the nose job and had paid for the nose job. And I thought to myself, I remember it was actually, I think, at my going away party, I remember looking at her and thinking, I might consider that for a job at the network, but for Channel 8, I'm not doing plastic surgery. There's just not enough money here.
Oh my God, print is another world.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? Go ahead.
If you don't mind, I would like to ask you, because you grew up with your parents in a family-owned business, and you learned by their example. Can you talk a little bit about we obviously didn't have our parents at the TV stations, because I'm sure my mom would never have asked you that. Never would have asked you. But I mean, can you talk a little bit about growing up with your family and learning from them?
There wasn't a separation from business when we got home. Business came home with everyone, and the dinner table, everything was discussed. And my dad had girls, and he really emphasized that, one, you're black and you're a female. You've got to be triple as good as everyone else. And so there was always these examples of excellence. And so one of the things they did was they knew they couldn't supply us with everything. So they made a circle of women who they trusted to look out for us, to be mentors and pour into us. Those women are still present in my life now. In fact, one of them is in the back in the gray strap.
That is so cool.
Good for you.
Man.
They went out of their way to make sure that there were things put in place to protect their daughters and to build them up and to kind of just let us know we can tackle this industry. I really didn't get that what my father was doing was bold and dangerous at the same time. I didn't get that it was unusual because it just seemed like the norm. And when my mom joined, I still didn't get, you've got 2 family members. You got a husband and wife team running a whole business, and not just a business, an institution. I really thought it was a normal thing. And even when my friends would say, your parents do what? Oh my God, what do you get? And when they'd come to our house, that was a norm for us. And I came from a family of entrepreneurs. Most of the people in the family had a business. So my days were very interesting because you got out of school and you went to the office or you went to a meeting. You came home. My dad was still very traditional and sat down and did homework. We ate dinner as a family. We would watch TV. The debates, anything, all of that was up for conversation. And one of the things that they demanded is that we have strong critical thinking skills. So my mom would always say, ask why, question it, find out for yourself. You don't have to agree with my perspective, just have an understanding. What do you think? How do you think that? And I used to be like, I'm in 3rd grade, I don't know. What is wrong with you, woman? But I didn't know then she was reading something greater out of me. And so now, my friends will tell you, do not say anything in front of Sasha because she's going to ask you 101 questions. And I will, because I really want to understand and know your story and your perspective and what made you do what you do. So John and Yolanda just really had this wacky way of parenting. There was a village to kind of come in there and get you going. If you messed up, they couldn't deal with you. You got set off to the next person to kind of deal with you and get you set and straight. And I came from a praying household, and so there was nothing that was off limits. There was nothing I could not ask God for. And I watched my dad pray. He got up in the morning, he prayed with us, and I'd watch him from my bedroom windows, put his feet on the pavement in our yard, and pray and talk to God about his business. There was nothing he would not say. That really showed me that that was his partner in the business. And though my mom was his partner, this is who he trusted to provide and make a provision. So they didn't agree about everything, and they'd let each other know. And again, it was not unusual to be included in the decision-making process. Those were things that came home with us. We decided to move out of the Northend to Hartford. I'll share a funny story with you. My father was really gangster. There were a few times where I really thought we might get killed over this man. And our business was in the heart of the Northend. There was a big drug problem. And they had taken me out of Catholic school, and I was like, what the heck is wrong with you? And they put me in public school, and they put me in Mark Twain. It was a horrible school in the heart of the hood. I don't have normal black girl tendencies. How am I supposed to thrive in this environment? And I was literally panicking like, you took me out of my comfort zone. Eventually, I got friends, and they kind of molded me and helped me move forward. But one of the things I remember is, as crazy as he was, because he was absolutely crazy in Blue Hills, he'd come outside and call the cops on the drug dealers in their face and did not care. He demanded there be a beat cop, and he made space in his office for the beat cop to have a station. He did everything to push the envelope. And I can remember walking from Mark Twain to Blue Hills and thinking, one day he is going to be dead because of this. What is wrong with him? And my mom would try to rationalize with him, and he didn't care. But one of the things I remember, and it still happens to this day, when I got on Blue Hills, the drug dealers had a level of respect. They could not deal in front of his office, but not only that, they escorted his daughters to his office. If you weren't from that neighborhood and you didn't know him, it was immediately told to you, she's off limits. Those kids you don't mess with. They still had some level of respect for this man, although he was pushing the envelope and doing everything to drive them crazy. That level of respect is still shared with the businesses there. There's still some rules. It might be illegal, but there's still some rules left and implemented in that neighborhood. And now, when I go over there, they still treat me with the same level of respect and the same requirements. But transitioning from there into downtown Hartford was a risk, and it was something scary. And I can remember my mom really concerned because she was saying, if we come out of Northend, do people still think we're a publication for Hartford, for the Northend? Are we moving on up? Are we going to be looked at funny? They eventually made a decision to come downtown, and it's worked. And though some people don't agree with it, we've actually thrived in being downtown. And it's forced some people to come out of their comfort zone with us. So we didn't have usual family conversation.
It's not.
It was banter constantly at the dinner table. And if you didn't agree with something with my father, you had to provide concrete reasons why that was not going to work. And so he was a very kind of dared me, challenged me, make it happen. In fact, he started his newspaper because he was mad with the Hartford Current. They didn't do something he told them to do. He quit. And the guy told him, well, if you think you can do it yourself. He quit, and the next week he started his paper.
So he did. That's pretty cool.
Good story. Yeah, I'm listening, and I'm thinking that, and I hate the word minority, especially here in Hartford. Blacks and Latinos are the majority, so this word minority is just wrong. But ethnic, I'll say, and hyperlocal ethnic media has to also almost play a role of advocacy. And I've worked in both now, where I've worked in the mainstream newsrooms, and that's a whole other experience. And I've also ran a Spanish radio station, and I now have CT Latino News. And you do have to have an advocacy piece. And I have to tell you, for me, coming out of straight journalism, it's been an interesting sort of experience where you have to broaden a little bit of what you do without journalistically advocating. Yeah, but it's a whole different animal. And I just also want to say, I was afraid of your father, too. I used to place ads, and he'd call with his voice, okay, haven't gotten the payment. I'm like, I'm on it. Because usually you wait for others, till you get it, and then I'm like, I'll pay it up front. But anyway, your dad was a very impressive figure.
Thank you.
I'm glad he was part of Hartford.
We have to advocate because a lot of our readers do not understand or know what's happening.
Yeah.
And I am responsible for them. If I do not advocate or I do not explain what's going on and it affects them and it comes down the pipeline, I have failed my readers. And by being a minority publication, I have no choice but to show up. I've got to ask the questions they don't know to ask. I've got to ask about the stuff they don't even realize is happening. And not only that, I have to explain it and give it to them. And I have to give them a solution to the problem. I can't just rile them up. That's a major role of responsibility asked upon us. But it's a requirement to be a minority in media. We sit in these meetings, and I'm often dismissed because I'm young and I'm a female. And as you know, this is a male-dominated industry. And the men in my community are the men that dismiss me. So I got to fight twice as hard to get you to listen to what I'm saying and then turn around and go back to the same neighborhood and deliver the information. But it's the requirement of us. We can't not advocate for the needs and necessities of our readers.
Oh my God, run for office. Yeah, I'll vote for it. Do you know, though, we're talking, you are in where you started, and I want to talk in a little bit about the changes you have planned or the expansions you have planned, but most of us here are not doing precisely what we started out to do. We have morphed into something different, correct? You went into education.
Right. Well, first I started as a print newspaper reporter. Then I went on the Current's website.
That's right.
For many years, 12 years on the Current's website. Sort of when it first started, I worked all by myself. Nobody talked to me. But then, it started to gradually get bigger. Now everybody's online. And what was good is that I sort of saw that coming. I don't know how, but I sort of saw that coming. And it helped me to get the job that I have now, teaching digital journalism, since there's not a lot of people who can do that.
Had you thought when you were a print journalist that my job may change drastically? No.
But I just remember, after being a reporter for 5 years, working on the city desk, I started to feel burnt out, and I started to think, maybe I don't know if I can do this anymore. But I wanted to stay in journalism because, for the same reason that you talk about, I knew that I had the type of skills where I could help the community, where I could explain things to them so they can make good decisions about their lives. But maybe I could just do it in another way. So when I was lucky enough to get onto the Current's website, I loved my job. I worked all the time. I never stopped working. So I knew that I was in the right place, which was nice. And Susan, I just wanted to remember one thing that happened at the Current. After my third year there, the women at the Current all got together. And you may remember this too, Donna, where we had a gender pay equity study.
We tried to start a union.
The gender, all of you realize, and I was just, I was like the 23-year-old, kind of like clueless, like, I'll just go to the meeting, whatever. And you realize that the women at the Current were being paid a lot less than the men. And I was one of the few people who got a huge raise because of it.
You're welcome.
So thank you.
That was so awesome. It's awesome. Say it again. You're very welcome. It was so worth it. Who doesn't like to argue with their bosses?
I was
my
the
God.
shop steward.
It was just
at
so
Channel
so
8
was
for
I.
10 years
Oh.
because it gave me an opportunity to sit across from the boss and tell him exactly what I thought was
Yeah,
great.
because you can say in that venue, you are listening with your mouth. Shut up, I have something else to say, and nothing happens. Yeah.
The frustrating thing about being a union leader in a television newsroom, I don't know if you had this, Diane, but most people in TV have a personal services contract. So you or your agent negotiate what you're going to be paid, and you have a contract that specifies, a lot of them are very similar, but they have some specifics in them that relate especially to you, maybe what shows you're going to be on or various things. So I would have a lot of resistance from the members who never wanted to pay their dues because they were like, my contract takes care of me. I don't need the union. Why am I paying dues? It was hard. It was really hard. And occasionally I would be able to make a point because I would find out that someone who had a personal services contract was being paid significantly less than the minimum payment that the union required. And because they were so adamant about not being a part of the union, they never read the contract, they didn't know that they were being paid 2/3 of what the base salary was. So I remember we had one woman who came in who they made her an anchor, and she was all excited about that. And then I found out that they had hired her as an intern. So they were paying her like $5 or $7 an hour. And the minimum at that point for a base salary was like $35 an hour plus overtime and all that. And she was so on her high horse because she had this big-time agent. And I thought, your agent is an ass. And if you had read the contract they handed you when you walked through the door, you would have known a year ago that you were making 2/3 of the minimum that you should be making.
I think I absolutely had those. I was the union steward, too, for 2 years. I couldn't do it out more than that. So good for you. But what I'm seeing now is, well, not now. It's always been the case in the legacy media. Everybody wants to get into it. With TV and radio, it's glamour, who you meet, all of that. Print, there's a power piece to that. Media has a power piece to this. Really? It really does. Well, I remember when I worked at the Current doing the stories, and I remember going to the Channel 3, and they'd give me the Hartford Current stories to go report off. So there's a power piece here, and you have to admit that. And there's so many people wanting to get in to media, they'll do anything. And they think, well, I'm cuter than you, I'm smarter than you. And women do that a lot. I'm not saying the guys don't, but women have done that. I can't believe it has stopped. That, you just are trying to get the upper leg because it is so competitive. And it's and there's the hierarchy of reporting, anchor, and moving on to the bigger news stations and networks. And so it gets very ugly and very competitive, and I've seen that a lot. I saw that a lot in my years.
In radio?
When I first started, I just wanted to be a DJ. I just wanted to play music, and that was my love, and it still is to this very day. And then through that journey, I discovered different passions, as we all do. And then with that and with the change of the industry, going from playing records to now, and I just had this conversation with a new young woman who was going to be working for me. I was talking a little bit earlier today. I'm exhausted with everything that you have to do now. I signed up to be a DJ and play some cool music. That's it. Go to the clubs afterwards, maybe bartend, have a little fun, party zone, woohoo. Now it has turned into, and first of all, I am living my job right now. It's my passion. I'm very blessed right now, and I do know that, and I do know that there's no guarantees in our industry, as with anything now. But so I started as a DJ. Now I am a DJ. You could say that I'm on TV. I don't know if I would call myself a TV personality at this point in my career, but I'm on TV. But I also have to maintain a blog. I have to write stories. I was not classically trained in journalism, but I have to report on stories. I have to report news stories. Now with a syndicated talk show, I have to, and it's been going on for over 10 years now, 11 years actually this March. I have to get into the community. I have to make sure that I'm touching all points of the community, because as the director of community affairs, I have to make sure that I'm hitting all points Connecticut, because my show is on 9 stations, reaching about 2 million households, and I have to make sure I'm covering all the stations. We have an urban station, we have a country station, a talk station, a controversial station, which I'm not too fond of some of the people on, but I have to make sure that I'm doing all of that. I have to do social media on all that. I have to learn social media. I do not have one app on this phone because I don't know how to get one. But I have to tweet, I have to Instagram, I have to write stories. I had to learn from the greats that are up here. I had to learn how to compose a story in a few words and get my point across, and then deliver the news on camera now, or deliver the news on the air. It is absolutely exhausting. And I think about it sometimes when I have a day off, I get like the jitters if I'm like, oh, did something happen? And I didn't. And then one night, a couple of people of note have passed away recently, and I was at home at the time, and my computer didn't work. And then there's 1 million people that work at our radio station, or our media outlet. But then because I couldn't get my computer to turn on, and I don't have the VPN on this, I had to go to the radio station, turn everything on, put the story out there, get it out there, take out breaks, put them on the air, and then come back home. And my husband's like, really? Can we have dinner now? And they always say, leave your phone or leave your social media on the side, but especially, this is 24/7. That's it. It doesn't, this business doesn't care who you are, what you are, male, woman, white, black, Asian, it does not matter. You have to always feel like you have that pressure to get that story out. And what concerns me now is, especially with social media, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, but with social media, it's almost as if you just need to get the headline out and worry about the story and the content later. Let's just get that headline out. Oh, and I've got this story first, and then you'll post it on your blog, and then people say, well, that's not how many people that are dead, or that's not what happened. Like all these different things, and you feel all this pressure, and it is
also work for CNN.
It's just exhausting.
It's CNN's. It's their fault.
It's
24-hour news cycle. I blame them.
And I always tell people where I work with the community access, especially, I don't like to be first anymore. I don't want that feeling is past for me now. I don't need to feel like I need to be first with anything, because now I feel
I'm
like
still not over it.
Yeah, I like to get it out there, but I'm afraid of not having it right.
Yeah, no, with CT Latino, we've kicked some butt a little bit in 4 years, and there is nothing like feeling like you broke the story. I'm still loving it. I don't have that 24/7 sort of. We post when we post, and it's different. But there's something about breaking that story that's just, it's good.
That's true. Do you want to talk about social media at all?
Well, sure, I can talk about social media. I mean, obviously,
For hours.
for in teaching my journalism students, and I think about how their job today it's so much harder than when I graduated from UConn. I was a print newspaper reporter. I went out with my notebook. I interviewed a few people. I came back. I typed it into the ATEX machine, and then it showed up on people's doorsteps magically. I didn't have to worry about anything like that. But now it's not just I have to share stuff while I'm reporting the story, ask the audience for information. Then I have to, collect my information. Then I have to put it out there. Then once I'm done putting it out there, I need to also distribute it. It's not just I give it to the editor and it shows up on people's doorsteps. No, I have to publish it myself on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on my own blog, tweet it at people. And then once it's done with that, now people probably want to talk to me about my story.
I hate that.
Like they do with you, Susan. So when do you get to actually just leave it and then move on to the next thing?
don't.
And you don't, especially if your story catches fire, because then now you got to keep talking about it. And for journalists today, it's not for the faint of heart. And the thing that I noticed, in my classes that I teach, probably still have an equal number of males and females, but definitely the women in the class tend to be, they're the ones getting the A's, because they're willing to do more work most of the time. That they usually go above and beyond. And the thing that I want them to realize is that they have to be, if they really want to do this, first of all, they need to know they're going to be exhausted. But they also have to be really brave. Because as you know, Susan, with the way that, and the thing that I study at UConn is online comments. So I know all of you have read online comments, and it's ugly. And it's really ugly if you're a woman. And if you're a woman in media, and you're essentially a public figure, you are going to be attacked for the stuff you cover, for the fact that you're just a woman. Worse if you're a minority woman, because you'll be attacked for just that reason. So if you want to go into journalism, you have to realize that that's going to come up against you. And I've been thinking a lot lately about my job as a journalism professor. I have to prepare them. I have to warn them, and so that they come to it with their eyes open, knowing if I cover this story, if I put my opinion out there about the things that I care about, if I think that's what's happening is wrong, I am going to be attacked not only for what I think, but because I am a woman. And how do you deal with that? And there's things out there. What's great is that there are large groups of women and female journalists, women in media who are coming together to support each other. I don't know, the education community is becoming more aware of it, but it's very clear that if digital is the way that we're communicating from here on out, because we're not going back, then how can we learn to talk to each other and not have it be, a toxic wasteland where you're afraid you're going to be, raped when you leave your house? All right, that's not the way that it should be. That's not what civilized society does. And what I would like to see is all of us who have some stature in media, that you have this voice, you have this platform, because you are who you are, can we somehow try to change the dialogue? As you know, like the rhetoric now is just so awful. Is there something that we as journalists can do to try and, so that kids today, my own students can learn how to talk to each other and talk to each other in such a way that it's actually intelligent, informed, not always snarky, just because it only fits in 140 characters. Does it have to be snarky so you get my attention? Is that the only way to get my attention? So
I don't know if I've had that experience of being attacked because I'm a woman. I don't think I ever felt that my work was being attacked because I was a woman. But I was cleaning out a closet over the weekend. I did find a letter. I don't know why I saved this, but I found a letter. It was written, a woman wrote it to me, and she said, I have been chosen by 14 of my neighbors to be the person to write to you. We live on Long Island, and Channel 8 is the only station we get. Now I'm thinking she's going to say, why do you only cover Connecticut news? Because we're out here in Long Island. No, she says, we really like you. We think you're very smart, but we do not like your hair.
Oh, God.
And
oh my God.
we decided it's way too blonde, it doesn't suit you, it's much too long, and we feel that what you really need is a complete makeover. I'm sorry to have to deliver this news to you, but my neighbors voted me to be the person to do it.
So you write her back, you say, please send me a picture of you and your 14 neighbors because I want to return the favor and tell you what you're doing wrong with your hair.
But you know, those people never include their return address.
I got hate mail I teach at University of New Haven. I got hate mail at University of New Haven last week about a column I wrote in 2006 for the Hartford Current. I don't know if the person took that long to address the envelope.
That's really
or to read it aloud to himself, but they did not return it. It was a man, but
Probably found it online.
darn it, he didn't include his return address because I will write him back. I'm not the person to ask how to stop this nasty comment.
When I got my first piece of hate mail, I felt accomplished, like I was inducted.
You
And
scored.
I literally still keep it on my dresser and look at it every morning, because that meant I was doing something right if somebody got that riled up to actually go old school, write me a letter, rip my cover up, and tear my paper to shreds and mail it back to me.
Yeah.
You know, I always felt, I have saved my hate mail, and now that I started CT Latino, I keep it there because, you know, it's just a good reminder, and they never signed their name, and they would always tell me, go back to Puerto Rico. I'm like, I live in New Britain. I live over here. It was just such ignorance. It was just such ignorance. But I just found myself in the middle of hate emails, threatened lawsuits. We just did a story on Latino Republicans rationalize. And I'm sorry, almost an hour, and Trump's name's going to come up. But, you know, we did a story on Latino Republicans who are rationalizing why they're going to vote for him if he is the nominee, which to me is just a hell of a freaking story. I'm like, what are you thinking, you know? That aside, well, both sides came after us, including one of the people in the article who said after an hour and a half conversation, an hour with the reporter, had to leave, called the reporter back, said, well, he didn't say he was misquoted, say it was all off the record because it's hurting his business.
Whatever.
It's hurting his business, and I'm going to look into legal stuff. So that was that. The left side, what kind of newspaper, what kind of media are you? What kind of coverage to report that Latinos would vote for Trump? I have to tell you, I had to take an aspirin. I said, I'm too old for this. Before, I used to love that stuff. But, you know, you do get caught in the middle, especially, you know, everyone does. And you know what? You know, the writer who I have who did the story is a retired editor of Bristol Press, so he's an old news guy. He and I just had such a good time, like we're still in the game. Anyway, but I do keep it. I keep the hate mail, and my hate mail was usually when I worked at 3 and the Current was Latino related. It was always Latino related, and it didn't bother me. I kept going. What are you gonna do? Yeah.
I get hate mail and emails all the time. It's so exciting. And calls. My favorites are the ones that you pick up and like, hi, the river, what's going on? You suck. Okay, have a great day. You move on, whatever. But, you know, something that I've never spoken publicly about, and I think that women, I've never been one, thanks to my mom actually who's here, I've never been one to categorize anything. And up until probably high school, I didn't know the difference between black or white or gay or straight, or I really didn't know there was anything. I didn't really learn about racism until a lot later in life, thanks to Woodstock and my mom and hippie love, which is the best compliment I can give. But, you know, something happened to me a few years back, and Paul will remember this, and my mom too, but years ago on the radio, that I was just reporting on something, and I said something, I don't even know at this point, I'm not going to repeat it because I don't want to bring it all back up, but luckily for us in our industry, some of the changes is that you can voice track, which allows you to do a lot of different things, which is great. But I had said something, and a woman had heard what I said, and she interpreted it in her own way, then went to her organization, which is an organization in our state, and went to her executive director, which was another woman, and they decided instead of calling me to start sending off letters to their affiliates, and then they had affiliates across the United States, and they composed a paragraph of what they thought that I had said on the air. And I didn't say it. Thankfully, I had it on audio to prove that I didn't say it. But all of a sudden, I started getting calls and emails from people demanding that I be removed from the airwaves. And then it went to our corporate office in Dallas, and then it went to New York, and then sponsors were threatening to pull from my show, all for something that I didn't say. So when I called the woman who was the executive director of this organization, I said, I'm right down the street from you. Why wouldn't you call and verify your facts? Why would you be so quick to jump to conclusions? And she said, well, I got it from her, and we trust her in the office, and we know she would never lie. And I thought, well, okay. So then I said, but this isn't true. So then I was like fielding all these different calls saying I didn't say this. And then it was all these different women ganging up on me. And I'd never in my life and in my career, no matter who I came, even being from Ask the Bimbo to this, I never experienced such hatred of people. And so finally, I got other women from the Susan G. Komen Foundation, from Special Olympics Connecticut, from other women in the community, from the Governor's Prevention Partnership, all to call this particular organization to say and talk about my character. And at this point, you would think that they would ask to do a retraction, but instead, they thought that they would just let it go and go to bed. And I remember appealing to her saying, we're women in this industry and we have to stick up for each other. And I don't understand why you would want to tear another woman down. And it went away because we had all the proof and everything. But for almost 6 months of my life, it was a bunch of women trying to take down everything that I built with community access. And I just, that's one thing that I don't know if we touched upon really tonight that I wanted to just kind of quickly say is that the women, I've had a great experience, and it's the first time meeting you, but for others, I've had great experiences with these women up here that have wanted to help other women, which I think we need more of in this industry instead of people trying to tear other women down that are maybe doing well or that are getting some success. Or, like Diane, I looked to you, and I remember in the bathroom, well, this is the meeting in the ladies' room, right? But I remember in the bathroom and at a place that will go unnamed that we both worked, but I remember the advice you would give me, and I treasure it, and you never being a woman you always supported everything.
That wasn't really the bathroom, that was our office.
But we put all our
just
makeup.
had toilets.
Right. But it's just one thing that I wanted to make sure that got across tonight was that, women can be great and fierce and also on the same side.
Yeah.
I think on that note, we're going to have
That's
some
a good note.
questions. So I'll play, who remembers Phil Donahue? Would anyone like to, oh, great, okay.
I'm good at talking. Kay Page Greaser here. I think everyone at the table has seen a press release from me over time.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have a two-part question, and I do want to ask it down the line. The first one is rather simple, and that is, when you were at a news media, did you have input on what stories you covered? Number one, just yes or no. And then number two, how now in the business you're in do you best like to receive information? Traditional press releases, a text, somebody following you on a blog, someone following you on Facebook and sending you a private message. Because I'm in that business, and I'm finding that many of the media people who I have my best relationships with, who respond to me all the time, it's like John Cadillac Seville, if I don't text him, I don't get him. So I'm very good friends with him. I do a lot of work with him. But if I don't text him, I don't get him. So, I'm just curious.
First answer, yes.
Okay.
And second answer, email.
For me, same. I would say yes, I have gotten input from other people on my stories, and email I like the best too. But you could also tweet at me.
Yes, and email's my favorite, and I'm just getting into tweeting. So I could do that. I really like the email thing, though. Email's my favorite. Yep.
So I'm going to say yes to the first answer because I really get to make the hard decisions. And anyone who doesn't agree with me, they just have to be mad with me at this point. But I have this thing where I feel like my social media should be just Sasha, not Sasha the public figure, but just a piece of me and a piece of my life, even though it kind of crosses. So it drives me crazy when people want to talk business with me over Facebook and Instagram. You are welcome to follow me and be my friend, but if you want to talk business, I want you to email me. On my Facebook, I talk about my furry child and whatever I'm cooking for Sunday dinner and that kind of experience. And I don't want to know that there's a crisis and you need a press release or you need me to respond urgently right now. It's just, to me, it's my safe haven. So I prefer emails.
Input on stories, the most I ever had input on was when I was on the radio with Ray Dunaway, because there's a different dynamic, at least in talk radio. I'm not sure about other formats, but thank you. In talk radio, really the talent, the on-air people, are the people who drive what the program is going to be. When you're on a television newscast, it's really the producers who are driving what it's going to be. You do have some say over what you're going to cover, but not a lot, or not as much as I would have liked. And I prefer email.
I'd say yes. In my career, I always, and I've spoken to a lot of college groups about this as well, how you write the story, who you interview is your input. And I remember when we did MOS's, Man on the Street, go out and do Men on, that was what they called it, to go get a random, opinions on whatever the topic was. I would really make a point of trying to get diverse, get women, some Hispanics in there, a couple of Asians, anybody, just so it wasn't Man on the Street. So I think there is a way to input just your word choices when you write. As far as how I like to be contacted, any way you like. I have to tell you, how did we do this? Facebook. I'm okay with it. If you're going to send me a press release, really. But if you just need to, hey, there's something going on, Twitter, whatever it takes, email, really, whatever it takes, social media, LinkedIn, have gotten some story leads on LinkedIn. So whatever, just don't call me at home or something. That used to kill me, by the way. I remember being at Channel 3 in The Neighbor, and we carpooled to ballet, and I'm feeding my daughter, who's 2, and she gave my phone number to her brother-in-law who wanted a story about something. Never, ever call a reporter at home, ever.
I wonder who she's going to ask a question of.
I'm the mom, and I have a question for you. With the presidential campaign that's going on now, how do you feel journalism has either improved or, shall we say, gone downhill?
Oh, down.
Are we doing down the line?
You start.
Drop the ball, should have asked the tough questions last August.
They just don't challenge. And, and I keep thinking, why aren't you following up with that question? They just stop.
Sometimes
is that what
I
it is?
think what's
just
driving that is the idea of balance. Okay, if someone says something, then you have to get the opposing view, even if this person doesn't have the brains God gave that person at birth. There has to be a balance. And I think sometimes we drop the ball because we're trying to be balanced.
And I noticed, I think there were 2 reports today. One was the presidential candidate, not to be named again by me today. I guess there's been some negotiating of, I will be on your show. Not obviously the big ones, the big networks, but if it's softball questions. So there's some of that is existing. I think I saw that in the Washington Post actually today. So there's some of that, and then there's also that ratings piece that I keep reading about where they're just going crazy. I never really watched a full 3-hour GOP debate, I have to tell you. I wasn't real good about that. I kind of figured out a little bit here and there. So the ratings are out of control. And, it's a job. It's a job, and your boss says, this is good. And the way it's such a competitive business, you do what you have to do.
Susan, I agree with you that the media dropped the ball on this and didn't ask the right questions at the right time. But I also think that the trend in media toward more sensationalistic coverage, toward more niche coverage, where you only watch the television station that has your point of view, or you only listen to the radio station that has your point of view, or read those blogs, I think that we helped create Donald Trump. We gave him the avenue to be who he is. Yeah. And so we're partly responsible, I think.
I agree.
I stay away from politics 100% because it makes me nervous. But what upsets me in the way that a lot of people are getting the message out or the stories out is that I've never seen such hatefulness and such rudeness and such, I am an American. I'm proud to be an American, and I feel like we're insulting our troops when we don't get the right story out there, because they're the ones that are fighting for us. And so then here we have this circus that's on television or on radio, and it's not even limited to journalists, and it's not all journalists actually, but it's the media in general. It's the late shows that are choosing to have fun and do bits and routines, which they have to do. They have to get their ratings, but it's so embarrassing as an American that we're making such fun of the office that's supposed to be our leader. And I just go back to thinking, and I'm this is just a general mom comment, not to keep pointing out my mom, but like if your mom told, if you told your mom you're going to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge, then she would say to you, if Johnny's doing it, would you do it? And that's what I feel like everybody is saying. They're going to follow a party even though it's bad. And I feel like the messaging that we're giving our kids and the messages that we're giving everybody on every level and the way it's being portrayed is just awful.
But media in general is much more business driven than when I started in 1977. When I graduated from University of Hartford, much more business driven. I've seen it in radio, I've seen it in print, and certainly when I worked for Channel 3, I was there 10 years. From the point that I entered to the point that I left, it was such a dramatic difference. I remember in the beginning, everybody sat together, we were all, equals, then the hierarchy started, the stardom, the anchors, and then near the end, I have to tell you, in the room where they would have their morning production meeting to determine what you're going to cover, it had the different towns and what we needed to cover, because that's how you sell. So we don't have a story out of New London. Our salespeople are down in that part of the state. So I saw it then, and since then, and I left, 95, and it's much more business-driven now than ever. The editorial and the business sides have gotten closer together, and I think that that's part of it, too.
I would say social media gives you a more genuine perspective of what's going on. There's a difference in the underground media versus the mainstream. A lot of what I look at, I prefer the underground. In the social media industry, we say, where are your receipts? Produce your evidence. That is where I find more factual information and live information versus the sensational stories and the sensational pieces. These people who are just hungry for opportunity to get picked up or get attention to their work produce great quality work and give you what you need to understand and see the perspective. And I love how a lot of them live feed. They'll go where something's happened. They'll stream from the debate. They'll give you what you need without swaying you. It's just a genuine piece, and it's not a conversation of what needs to be balanced. It's just, this is the candidate, this is what they're doing.
More unfiltered, yeah.
Figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, but Sasha, I think that the choices that you make yourself on social media exposes you to that kind of information, whereas the rest of us may not be making those kinds of choices, and maybe even making choices so, again, we have the same echo chamber we've always had. And that's a big danger, because there's so fewer sort of those mainstream catch-all, kind of like the Hartford Current, like we want to serve everyone. It's not the general audience anymore. It's so niche. So you're finding good sources from that niche. What everyone should do on social media is follow people who don't think like you, just to see what they have to say. And I advise my students to do this. You don't have to do it for a long time, because it may enrage you and make you crazy, but do it for a little while. Like, make a list, look at those sources, just so you know why everybody else is acting that way. And then, again, you'll sort of have that understanding. And then, hopefully, if you have found really good sources, please share them with us.
I will. That's also a good way to check your own perspective.
That's right.
Hello, Barbara, Dutch Point Credit Union. I know a couple of you. Women in media, which is why you all are here tonight. I had asked a few friends to come with me. Several were male. One was going to attend with me, but he had a funeral to go to. So it frightened the men that were going to come with me. Seriously, Susan Campbell, I knew you would love that. And the person that was going to come with me, he was our COO. And he said, "Are you sure I should come?" And I said, "Absolutely." I said, "Why not? More for you." I made a joke at first, but and I said, "If anything, it's going to show that you highly respect women and how much they have done in our world and our society. And he said, oh, good point, duh, I don't know why I didn't think of that. So when I sent out an email today and said, anybody want to go with me, I'm not going to say whom, but a large figure in my company, male, made a joke, I guess. I didn't know it was a joke, but he said, I can't make it, with a bunch of exclamation points. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I probably should have included you a while ago. And he said, no, it looks like a women's event. You know, I was making a joke. And I said, oh, okay. And I left that alone because I'm not going to go there with that person because that's my job. So why? You know, why are we still here is my question. You know, women were still making 78 cents per dollar of what men are making.
85 in my congressional district.
Okay, 83. We're still here. So we're still not equal. And if you're Latino and if you're Black, you're making less. And you know, but I mean generally, if we're going to talk about the statistics,
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm joking.
Yeah, they're facts. And I learned that in school with Susan Campbell at Central. So, you know, why? You know, these are still some issues that we have going on, and you know, we are talking about the presidential election as well. Whether you're going to vote for Hillary, Trump, or Bernie, you know, we still have some serious issues going on. So I guess I just wanted your opinion on that.
You know, I think it's just who we are as people. I'm not saying it's a good thing. People will think, oh, no, that's for women. Oh, no, that's for that group. Oh, that's for Asians. I mean, I find it with CT Latino, it's like, well, that's not anything that I need to know about. What do you mean you don't need to know about it? There's 500,000 Latinos. There's 3 million in the state, 3 million residents, 20%. How do you not want to know about the future labor force? So to me, it's equal to with women too. How do you not want to know? I have to tell you, my proudest moments have been with CT Latino, and it's the same thing, is we have 70% Hispanic readers, 30% non-Hispanic. And I'm like, smart people. You are smart people. And if you're smart, a male executive would want to know everything. They would want to know. That's going to make you a better manager because you're managing women. And it's the same thing with what I'm doing too. It's those 30% you're smart because whether it's in the workplace, or in school, your community, the neighborhood, you need to know about everyone around you. And I think it just goes to speak to their, how do I say this politely?
Ignorance.
Okay, we'll go there. Well, to their limited view of what they needed to know, of what they need to know about the world around them. And that, to me, would hold people back because you have to know about all kinds of different things in people.
And how many panels have we listened to where it was all men? No offense, love me, my men. But how many panels do you go to where it's not diverse? And I'll sit in the audience and listen. They don't frighten me, but I don't know. I'm sorry, I interrupted someone.
Maybe it's the age gap, but I don't want to be equal to a man. I want to surpass him. And I'm completely comfortable.
Oh, the youth.
Completely comfortable if you don't want to come and see what's going on, because I know what you're doing. You're quietly reading the blogs. You're quietly following us on social media. You may not be comfortable to come in this room. My spouse blew me off for football practice. I know he did it because he didn't want to be in a room full of women, but I'm okay with that. Stay in your parameters. But I think because I was nervous today, and I really was concerned. I said, I'm young. It's all these distinguished women. I don't know what to do.
Whatever.
And so I had a phone call with him, and he said, you're nervous? I said, yeah, I'm nervous. I get nervous. Not my Sasha Allen. And I said, yeah, I do get nervous. And so we started this conversation. He said, you're a boss. Why would you get nervous? You run a company. You run men. You run this business. There's never a reason for you to get nervous. You're qualified to be there. You need to be in this room. And I thought, when I hung up the phone with him, I got all teary-eyed. I was like, oh, my God, I'm going to marry you. You are so sweet. And I thought about the uniqueness that he never misdirects me. He always pushes me to go the extra step. And so where I am second-guessing my abilities, He's completely like, nah, go ahead and do it. I'll take care of the house. I'll run and do this. You handle it. That's a unique thing. I know other women who do not have that and do not have a partner that believes in their capabilities and who's even challenging them. And this is the thing I love about him. He's completely comfortable as a man to let me do what I do. He doesn't feel threatened. He doesn't feel a need to try to compete. It's okay, we're in this together and we're partners. So because of that, and because I told you my father was so gangster, I don't want to be equal. I want to surpass you.
You go, girl.
So I want to do a shout out to the men in the audience. Thanks for coming.
Hey.
We're going to do one more question. I know we could be here forever, but Denise, okay, 2 more questions.
I'd like to pick up something Renee and Marie said. I read the newspaper from England every day. Nothing pisses me off more than someone who said something on social media. Everybody's, and it seems people are more vile on social media, they're more anonymous. And then the person who said whatever they've said goes, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, it was taken out of context, it meant blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to mention his name, Mr. Trump. I sat and listened to him one night. I don't agree with most things he says, but he doesn't apologise. It seems today nobody's allowed a different opinion. I don't agree with what he says, but he's got the courage of his convictions to say, well, this is what I agree with. If you don't like it, you know.
We'll kill you.
Say again?
We'll get you roughed up.
But are you ever tempted? Because Renee, I'm disgusted about how you were treated. And you all seem very strong women, and I hope you would never say, well, it was taken out of context, blah, 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 blah. But the vitriol that you get nowadays is appalling.
It's so hard because that experience, every single day, sometimes I'll record a break and I'll think I need to record it because I thought, did I offend somebody? So it gets me a little nervous, and I've started to grow out of that. But also everything that I post and everything that I write, actually, I said earlier, Sasha, I said, I'm older and I'm with all these distinguished women, a little bit older than you. But you know, I actually, I don't believe in apologizing for what you say or what you believe in, especially if you know it came from a good place in your heart. I'm not really I'm not an aggressive reporter, if you want to call me that. I'm not anything. I'm just, you know, I try to get the message out. I mostly do my charity work. My whole life is summed up into 2 words with a connector: people and pets. That's it. That's all I do. I want to help the community. It's my passion, and I want to just be out there, and I want to get the word out. I want charities to be helped. I want everybody to have money, and I want everybody to be happy in my la-la land that I live in. So, but it's actually funny that you said that, and then I'll be quiet so you can go. But everything that I post now and everything that I post, and I'll see somebody always has an opinion that's not what I said. And I used to, in the beginning, try to explain myself, not apologize, but try to explain myself and then reply back and then reply this. And then it became like a game, it's like a video game almost. I'm like, what are you saying now? All right, well. And then I'll go someplace, get some information, copy, paste it, then I'm gonna get a picture, then I was like, oh my God, I don't have time for this. But everybody, and you know what? Whether I like Trump or not, whether I like anybody or not, whether I like any radio host or journalist or anybody here on this stage, what I can respect in our industry is people who can command their audience and know how to get their point across and have groups of people apparently follow them, whether you like them or not, whether you agree with them or not, and you can't fault anybody for their opinion. But I do find it very hard and challenging to be myself, which is my real name, Renee Dinino. Renee. I don't have a stage name. When I first started, they wanted me to be Renee Fox, but I don't know. But it's hard to play that game and try to stay. I just have to not look at it, either delete the comments or let them be and let them go. And it's very hard.
I mean, I don't think that you should have to engage with commenters who just are not making any sense, who are attacking you for things that clearly, like, you didn't say. And Susan, you, as a columnist, you know that's true. Now you shouldn't. You don't need to engage with every single one of them. If someone challenges you, to debate based upon fact. Oh, sure, yeah. Right, and debate, that sort of discourse is important to our democracy. But you're talking about civilized debate, which is not what you're seeing online. So, and maybe online is not the place where we should be having those types of debates. So, I mean, it's nice that we're having this conversation here, that we can sort of talk back and forth. Maybe more of that needs to happen. I mean, I would like to find a way where, journalists, people in media, how can we foster those kinds of conversations so we can bring some civility back to our discussions so that we can actually debate and, not want to set each other on fire afterwards.
Yeah, but you said debate about the fact, and that's what we mean, facts.
One time, I responded to something, it was called a bot, I was some fake program that was installed enticing some.
You were trolling. You were going back and forth with these people, and so they consider that trolling, and you're dragging them.
And if you don't, they can be really mean, really vicious. So you have to have either a cold heart or in place of your heart, or you just
turn it off. You lose something when you go through a machine. You're not looking somebody in the eye. You're not hearing their voice. You lose some humanity when that happens. So. We have to think about if we're going to constantly be interacting through machines, how do we bring some humanity back to it? So.
I've been a journalist, and I've also moved over to the dark side and been a marketer, and worked in nonprofits. And a lot of my friends now have the title content strategist, and we're made fun of because, what are you really? I mean, you're just a fake journalist who doesn't have a regular job at a newspaper because they closed or they cut, So, it's like a joke amongst people that, the hottest title on LinkedIn would be a content strategist, right? But I guess the one thing that I do think that content strategists do a lot is say to people and to themselves as writers, what's my golden rule? When am I wasting my time on, throwing spaghetti at the wall, on LinkedIn, Twitter, this, that, the other thing? And I wondered if any of you had, just a rule that, or who sets the rules for when you just don't reply, or when you don't tweet, because that's not your thing and you don't need to be there. Is there a strategy behind it? Because... or is it a personal strategy, or is it a corporate strategy?
Well, you have to think, who's your audience?
Right.
Who's your audience, and where is your audience? Is your entire audience on Twitter? Then be on Twitter.
Right.
Is your entire audience on Facebook?
But do you
then be
make
on
that
Facebook.
decision? Who's making that decision?
Our news outlet, my news outlet, is strictly online. And the chief traffic driver, what drives most people to our site, is social media. So I live or die by social media. So you see us on Twitter or LinkedIn, Facebook, holy moly. Having said that, so for us, social media, and as well for everyone else as well, I've been watching lately how Washington Post is really pushing New York Times with its social media. So I keep track of that as well. So it depends. There's a business piece to this too. Without readers, I could write all I want. My writers can write all I want. So that's one piece. When it gets very ugly and people attack, there's a point where we will go and say, we're certainly open to hearing all perspectives. Please write an op-ed. Please write a letter to the editor. We want to hear your view. But when it gets ugly, we just leave it alone. There's just idiots out there. And I want to say, like my paper, don't read it. But I don't. But that's what I'm really thinking. Because there's just their argument, what they're claiming is just not, it's unfounded. It's not an intelligent argument. So you just have to ignore certain things. And listening to everyone's story, you got to have a thick skin. You cannot be faint of heart to be a journalist, whether it's women in news, a minority, whatever it is. It's, there's a lot of balancing. There's a lot of work involved, and someone's always going to criticize you. So you got to have a thick skin, and you have to know when to leave it alone. Why waste your energy on something that is just not intelligent?
You can decide what platform you want to use. I will Facebook us to death, and I will get on Instagram, but I can't stand Twitter. Someone has to literally do something that has on national network or TV that has pissed me off for me to log into my personal Twitter. But one of the things that we do is we have apps that We preset stuff, we send it out, we add stuff to it, so I don't have to be bothered. I'm always surprised at our followership on Twitter. It's not just local, it's national journalists, and we have a great followership. But it's up to you and what you're comfortable with. And because I'm not comfortable with Twitter as much, I hate that I only have 140 characters. I have too much to say. I don't want to send you 5 tweets. I just want it done. I stay away from Twitter, and I let somebody else handle that platform. But Facebook and Instagram, I can do that all day long with you. So Twitter and LinkedIn are responsible for other people in-house. What you're comfortable with will shine the brightest, and that'll be your strongest platform. You can dabble in it, and I do dabble in it. I do look at it, and I have to tell you, they troll.
Oh, gosh.
They troll on our website, and I have to politely go in there and remove their comments or give them a little warning, like you will be escorted out of this. So it's really what you're comfortable with, but you do have to have a very thick skin. I'm sensitive. So in the beginning, I used to get in my feelings, like, why would you say that about me?
I didn't
do anything.
I'm working
and
so hard.
I was trying to make people like me, and then I finally just got to a point where I don't care. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Either you like me, you don't like my work, that's fine. Have a counter conversation. Send me an editorial. I would love to have an intellectual dialogue with you. You're welcome to do this with me. Let's have a conversation. So it's really what you're comfortable with. But if you're not going to put that thick skin on and deal with it, it's not something you can do.
You're in the wrong business.
They will drag you all day long if they can.
And you have to know your audience too, because not every, it's an age difference. There's, for pet rescue, Facebook still works. Twitter, you want the millennials. It's just all a matter of what works for you. And then usually, if I respond back to somebody who's being a little antagonistic, it just means I'm having a bad day, and you just caught me at the right time. And the one of the comments I knew I shouldn't have responded back to was because I do a lot of work with animal rescue and pit bull rescue, and we just actually got a law moved out of judiciary yesterday, so I'm really excited about that, or the day before, but you'll hear more about Desmond's law coming up. But my favorite comment I think that I should not have responded to was that I should be euthanized like all the pit bulls that I'm trying to rescue. And I just love, I just think to myself, I'm like, these are all the things, like in corporate America, wouldn't you get fired? You can't walk up to somebody's cubicle and say things like, oh, I thought you would be thinner in person. Oh, wow, you look better in person than you do on camera. It's like, I want to do like a day where all of us say and repeat everything that everyone has said to us and just put it on a video so people know what we hear on a day-to-day basis.
Good Lord. That would
I
take
know,
a long
right?
time.
Awful.
Well, I think we heard some great stuff tonight. So, thanks, Pat. Love meeting you, Sasha. Would like to talk to you some more. And love seeing my old friends, and love meeting you actually in person, Renee. I said to Renee today when we were all at the Mother Current and Fox 61 was in there, she would come in and sometimes do the traffic. And I thought, wow, she's pretty good. Who's that? No, it's Renee. So thank you all for coming. We could continue this.
But wait, Mom, can you take a picture of all of us? Stay right there. Wait, Don, come here. Wait, Barbara, you do it.
And thank you all for coming.
Come here,
really
get
good questions, nice energy.
All right.
Thanks to the guys for showing up. Appreciate it.
Come on, Don, get in the picture.
And we live streamed this tonight, and it'll be on the library YouTube channel in a couple of days. Our expert promote is going to do that for us, so you'll be able to revisit. So thanks. This is cool.